Oh, hey, welcome to the Real Deal Landman Show. I'm Drew Hopkins. This is Jerris Johnson, and special guest today, wearing that Spider-Man t-shirt, Mr. Kyle Reynolds. We are super excited because this is, as you know, this is the grand season finale. Season 1 of Landman is in the books, and we are here to be your just little bit of everything about that show. We're going to tell you about the season. We're going to wrap up everything good, but more than anything else, we're gonna talk to Kyle about his experiences, about the profession. So we're gonna get right into it. I don't know if you guys noticed, but this is not a green screen behind me. This is the Great Pacific Northwest. I decided last minute, I thought, you know what? For a season finale, I've got to do something special. I got to take this show on the road.
There you go.
And so I went from Oklahoma City all the way up to, this is a little town called Shelton, Washington. And so this is what I've always seen of if we've got Seattle right here, if we've got the canal and we've got the bay in there, we've got Olympia, the capital.
Yeah.
And then over here on the Olympic Peninsula is Shelton, Washington. So it is 5 minutes from the Sound. It's about 30 minutes from the Pacific Ocean, and it's about an hour from the Olympic Mountains. And so this is my in-laws' place, and they've got a beautiful pond out back where we can fish. They've got bear, they've got all sorts of, deer, everything here. So for me, who likes to pretend that I'm a real outdoorsman and grow a beard every once in a while, like my father-in-law kind of falls for it. I'm not going to lie to you, where he's like, oh yeah, he does like the great outdoors. But this is me in my element, guys. I don't know. I just want you to see, and I'm wearing flannel too. So
yeah. What kind of bait do you use when you're fishing for bear?
So what I've learned, that's a great question. So if you are actually fishing for bear and you want to get them close, it's dump as much trash as you can in the middle of he's got all these trails out here. He's got 117 acres is what this sits on. And he's got walking trails and 4x4 trails and everything. And if you want to get a bear in, you just dump a lot of trash in, and boy, like clockwork, the next day, they are there.
It's not just raccoons, not just the trash pandas.
Not what the three of us are probably used to, in the Midwest.
Yeah.
But yeah, the trash bandit raccoons, that's what I'm more accustomed to. But out here, it really is pretty fantastic. It's I like being able to come up here and kind of experience. They're a very logging centric, obviously, community. And that's what her family has done. And so even talking to them, kind of the first few times I was talking to even my father-in-law, talking and trying to form that rapport with this person that is going to be, family later on. And I'm trying to get him to like me and everything. And I was talking about my job in oil and gas and talking about leases and talking about land in Oklahoma. And he was telling me, yeah, our company has 600 acres here and we've got 1,500 acres over there. And I'm like, okay, I understand what he's talking about. And I'm like, so do you guys have surface and minerals, or do you have all this stuff? And at one point he looked over and he's like, why do you keep talking about minerals? Nobody cares about minerals, which was so crazy. Yeah. And so they only care. And that was a real unique deal for me to learn here, is they genuinely only care about surface. And it's just for how can they log this, get on to the next place. And it's a very, very neat deal. And I say all that to say, it's all of these different things all around the nation. The lithium, the coal, the logging, so many different things that make it so exciting of that kind of landman title, and how we can understand how land is put together and how these units are formed and how it is meaningful and those contracts are being put together. It's really fun to experience that, how other people are experiencing it in their jobs. I totally dig that.
I don't think that people are not necessarily interested in what you're saying right now, but I think the big thing, what everybody has on their mind, Drew, is Monty dead?
Oh, do we run that spoiler alert at the top of this thing? Because spoiler alert, Monty is 100% dead.
We're about 10 episodes late of this podcast from doing the spoiler alert deal. And
we
you're
really
wrong.
are.
Well,
really
I don't
are.
know if you're wrong. I don't know if you're right. All I know is that you don't know if he's dead.
Well, and I'll kick it over to Kyle. I mean, you're the freshest one on watching this episode of just today. And we'll do a real quick episode recap. But I mean, pushing ahead in the episode, Monty is laying in the hospital bed. Demi Moore, who has had all of 5 lines this season, is crying over him. His 2 daughters that don't even care about him the rest of the season, except if he's pitching the help to get him drinks at the pool, like they're sobbing because they don't know when the next pool party is going to happen. Like, I mean, and the stinking screen behind him on the left, to me, it looked like it was flatlined. I think the guy's gone. Kyle, I mean, weigh in here. Let me know.
Yeah, I think we'll see. I mean, I think no. I think you're not going to kill off a main character. This isn't Game of Thrones. I think Demi Moore is the one who had first broken the news before episode 1 had aired that she had signed on for a 3rd season. So I think she's going to be around in some capacity. Biggest thing to me, though, that makes me think that he's still alive is, when Tommy's talking to the attorney about becoming president of the company, it was because Ham's character had a clause if he was dead or incapacitated. And we said incapacitated as many times as you could in like a paragraph as possible. And so I think
you're right.
It has to come back in season 2 at some point that Tommy does something dumb while he's incapacitated. He, comes up like the Undertaker and I want to see that. Yeah, so like it's like now who's in charge, and so like I think it's got to set up some sort of internal conflict, especially with them making the big deal about the farm out agreement that sounds very risky. Risking the company and the family future, and then how do they navigate out of that, and who has the capacity to sign what, and that would be my guess anyway.
That's right.
It's a lot easier for him to pop up out of a coma than it is for them to show the hand like coming up out of the dirt or of his gravesite,
Yeah.
I don't know that we're going to have zombie Monty. I think he's still alive.
Hey, so
he might have been dead in the second that you saw him, but I don't think he is. Oh, as Billy Crystal eloquently said in The Princess Bride, he's only mostly dead.
Oh, only mostly dead. Well, I've written down here on my notepad that I'm going to follow up with both of you whenever I'm right. So I will be sending both of you all a very strongly worded email of me being so, on top of my game here and being able to know exactly what's going on with the future of the show. He could be alive.
I'm going to throw out an option C, is that all of season 1 was just a Monty fever dream, and none of this
just like a
is
Monty
actually
dream.
taking place.
Yeah. That's fantastic. Oh, that's absolutely fantastic. I totally want to see that happen. There was so much that went on in this episode. There was really exciting parts, and then there was also like some really like long drawn out stuff that I was like, okay, we could skip to the next deal, a little bit quicker. If there was anything here that you guys want to stop and like actually spend some time on, let me know. But just giving you the broad sweeping strokes. We're painting with broad strokes here. Angela does the old folks home. She's super excited about that. That story has its own, whatever. That's fine. Ainsley and her new boyfriend they're married now. Thank goodness. Good for them.
Hopefully they run off and start a life together somewhere else.
We can all be so lucky if that happens.
And if they did, would we ever miss them?
I don't know. I don't know that we would. We saw Rebecca being a bit of a tough pill to swallow, like she normally is, causing Tommy some problems up until the point where he said, "I'm the new president, so you're going to have to listen to me now." What did she get? She's VP of Operations. Is that right? Exploration. Yeah. And she was really having a hard time this episode about, there was that one point in what they were talking about. She's like, we're going to have to go in and we're going to have to drill, or Dale was telling her, if we're going to have to drill horizontally and we're going to have to frack. And it was like, the explanation of how a well is drilled, but like in the most basic of only the terms that everybody in America has heard about oil and gas. Yeah. So he's like, we're going to horizontally drill. We are going to frack. We are going to, extract. And that was it. And she's like, I don't know if I'm comfortable with all this. I don't know if I'm comfortable with all. And for an like VP of exploration for a company, I think you've got to figure that out a little bit quicker, don't you? Like,
yeah, I thought
is that part of it?
I thought it was odd too. I mean, she's not even an employee of the company, and then kind of comes into leadership without any real like negotiating a contract to what's she getting paid for this new job. I don't know. It's outside counsel to here you go. It's your.
I mean, we should all be so lucky to fall into those executive roles, right?
That's right.
They're
that
like,
easy.
That easy. Just all of a sudden. And I mean, she basically lives in Midland now. She's never gone home. I don't even know if she has a home at this point. Yeah, she has lucked into this fantastic oil and gas job. MTEX Energy has had so many hiccups and falls and falling over themselves. They've had planes crash, tankers blow up, people die, people get limbs chopped off, guys die by getting pipe falling on them. And we've had the CEO either die or almost die in a span of 3 weeks. And like, I was thinking too, and like, I mean, throw in where you want here, but like, I don't know how big this company is, but it's a decent size. Like, it seems like it's a decent size. It's like a mid, right? Like, it would be a mid size. You think? Or Jerris, are you thinking no? You think they're smaller?
I don't know. It's so bizarre because like somebody else who pointed out on an earlier episode, I think it was Jimmy when he was on with us. It's very uncommon that you have an oil and gas company who is an operator who is employing all of these facets of the business.
Yeah.
Typically all these other field people or people who are working in conjunction with the company would all be outside contractors.
That's right.
And so I think in a normal world, your corporate office, from what we've seen so far, is like less than 10 people. So in a typical oil and gas operation, 10 people in a corporate office isn't really that big.
Right.
But I also don't know how many 10 people companies has the CEO that's, flying private everywhere and lives in a big mansion and has a wife whose sole purpose is just to swim laps in a pool. So to answer your question, I have no idea.
And he's got the ear of the governor, right?
Right.
And
yeah.
He's sitting at the governor's table and also kind of like swings his authority a little bit over like what the governor has, or everybody at that table early on in the season. Like he was like the main one that was talking in that boardroom, but he gives up his power to Tommy. And so all of a sudden this company of, let's say 10 people, let's say 50 people, they've got a new CEO. And I would think that the new CEO would immediately be like, I'm in Fort Worth. I'm in wherever our main headquarters is, working with the other like senior management. And Tommy's like, nah, I got to go out here and get a nail drilled in my leg.
Yeah.
Like that's what I got to have.
Yeah. Those cigarettes aren't going to smoke themselves. He's got to get.
That's right. It's right.
It is fair to point out. So we do have some people who watch and listen to this show here, our podcast, who are not necessarily super intimate with the oil and gas industry. It is probably fair to point out this time that there is usually not this much overlap with drug cartels and oil and gas operations.
Thank you.
We got to do that. This is pretty rare.
We got to do that refresher every once in a while. I did have, and we might have talked about it on an earlier show, of whenever I was in West Virginia working with some field guys. They were hooking me up with some moonshine, like some real deal moonshine. But that is the closest I ever came to cartel.
The only story that I have any closely related was when I was at Chesapeake and we had the Eagleford. We had a team down doing rig tours. So I think it was a couple interns and 4 or 5 staff folks that all had the big black SUVs rented. So there's, call it 3 SUVs coming, south of San Antonio, driving out on leased roads, and a ICE helicopter landed in the middle of the road, thinking that they might be moving people or drugs, because it's, within whatever 40, 50 miles of the border.
Holy cow.
I wasn't part of that trip, but that's the only thing that I can think
Right.
of. In some of those operating areas, I think there is overlap. You
So-
don't hear
Yeah.
as much about it in Midland, but
Well, from what I hear, and I mean, you guys tell me if I'm wrong, but from what I hear out in the Midland area, they've got those attack helicopters and they're blowing up the cartel, and
On a
those
regular basis.
on a regular basis,
Yeah.
and you just let them clean up their own mess, and that's it. That's all we have to say about it.
Yeah. And if you know the governor, you can even tell them where to do their practice runs and where to blow
Just-
stuff up. It's that easy.
It's so going on. The one thing that I will tell you, I haven't this whole season. I never really got behind Cooper's storyline. He and Ariana, because I thought it was pretty ridiculous. If it was just so quick. This was the first time that Ariana admitted it. She was like, "This, are we moving too fast here?" And I was just like, "Honey, yes, you are."
It's been days. What's the problem?
yeah.
Like, get over him already.
Get
Good
over him.
night. Get over it. No, she's. But I did like that. She was like, "Are we moving too fast?" And Cooper was like, "Yeah, probably. Should I go out?" And she's like, "Well, I didn't say that." Like, "Oh no, hold on, no, you're staying here." But they're working through. She's working through getting over the memory of her husband who passed away. And the nice thing is, Cooper said that, if you want me to be here and relive all those memories and be able to go through those and talk about them. So that was very nice. Does she still need a very high level of therapy? And she's got $1 million now. She signed that check.
Well, it sounds like Cooper spent that money. That was the other. I think he's using the $3 million her and her family.
I didn't even
members
think
got
about that.
to go buy these leases that are real speculative. So
To
I
go
didn't
buy
even
leases
think about
that
that.
he hasn't done title on.
yes,
I didn't even think about that. You're right. That
Yeah,
may be
yeah.
where he's funding this whole thing. That's a heck of a lot of. I mean, if she's letting him do that with that, maybe those two crazy kids are going to make it after all, guys. I mean-
so this morning I was in a conversation with somebody who lives locally here in Colorado Springs, and she was asking, so what do you do? And I said, well, I don't know if you're familiar with the term, but I'm a landman. And she said, actually, I am familiar with that. And I said, well, is it from the TV show or from something else? And she said, well, it's from the TV show. And I said, oh, okay, so no, you don't know what a landman is, unless you're following the storyline of the son, because like Cooper is probably the closest thing to
Landman.
a landman that we're actually seeing
Yeah.
so far. And maybe that was the intent all along. Maybe the story will focus more on him in the next season, and he is the landman. He is the title character.
yeah, I think that'd be a cool plot twist if that was. We all thought it was trying to figure out how to fit Billy Bob Thornton into that role, and have been debating all year or all season. And it's like, oh no, actually, it's somebody that is opportunistic and a problem solver and kind of fits the boxes of what he's trying to do. I mean, if he's successful in putting together these units and flipping those leases and moves out of town, as he said a couple of episodes ago, it's like maybe he was the lane man. That's what it was all about.
I would love it, honestly.
And then it also had me thinking, like, are we going to see a Sheffield type situation here, where Tommy is president of MTEX if Drew's half-cracked idea is correct that Monty's dead,
He's
and
dead.
Tommy actually takes it
He's
over.
dead.
Then does
Get
Tommy
over
end
it.
up buying Cooper's company at some point?
I mean, there's a lot of cool ways that this story could go. I mean, they're really doing, and I 1,000,000% agree with you, Kyle. I think that would be a honest to goodness, amazing take of, we thought it was all about Billy Bob Thornton and his character, and it really turns out to be Cooper's story. It'd be cool. That'd be very,
I
very
think
cool.
the other thing that, again, I think Sheridan does a good job in his kind of writing and character development. Y'all mentioned Ainsley and Ryder earlier, and I haven't really loved any of the scenes or involvement of her, but I would assume there is something that's a build-up, whether, she ends up being kidnapped by the cartel, she ends up being an environmentalist that's against the family business, to kind of add another layer there. I even wondered if Ryder's family, like with them making such a big deal about him being local and he's a kid from town, is like, are they going to need to get a lease or some ratification? And it's like, oh yeah, that's my grandpa. It's like wouldn't make any sense. It's a jump the shark moment if you hadn't introduced his character in season 1. So I think he normally
No.
does a good job of kind of weaving stories. I'm still a season behind on Yellowstone, but in that you'd go 3 or 4 episodes and not see some characters that had been really important for a few episodes. So he's not playing with as many people in this one, but I think you will see some of that come into play in season 2.
Well, all I said at the end of the episode, whenever it was all said and done, is I was like, why did the good Lord decide to take Monty and not Angela? And I will never forgive, any of the show writers for that decision, but there by the grace of God go I. So yeah, it was a really good finale. And as we kind of went to the climax of it in the end, Tommy's driving, he sees that he's getting boxed in by the cartel. The cartel takes him to, I guess, a bar someplace in the very rough and tumble area of Midland or Odessa, and he's in a basement and he's being tortured. I mean, a very intense torture scene to where, like, again, I was watching it with the in-laws here, and all 4 of us at one point were convinced. We were like, this actually maybe, and Jerris had kind of had a thing if he was like, maybe Billy Bob didn't make it through the whole season. And I was like, he's getting gas poured over his head. And I was like, our man may be making his exit here pretty quick. But I like the way they did it. I like the way that they brought in, what's his name? Andy Garcia. Is that right? If he's the big mafia, like the mafioso, the big cartel boss, I love him. Like, he's a great actor, and I think he's going to bring a lot. I think his role will be absolutely huge in season 2 of how he's going to be orchestrating everything. And he wasn't intimidated at all by, I thought it was a really cool dynamic between Tommy and the cartel head of neither one of them were given an inch of, you should know that the oil and gas industry, we've got more resources than anything. And he's like, yeah, it's fine. I've got the exact same senators. I've got the exact same mayors. Like, hold on, the sheriff's calling me, it was pretty cool. And Tommy, of course, just goes ahead and smokes a cigarette when he's got gas poured all over him. That was pretty interesting. But yeah, it's going to be really something. So all of Andy Garcia's guys killed his underlings, I guess, because they thought that they were a little higher up. That helped Tommy get rescued. Also, Tommy did go home and he slept on the couch, and Angela cared about him having his face beat up for all of about 30 seconds before she was like, do you want blueberry pancakes? And he just like holds himself and goes outside on the back patio where no one even notices that he's all beat up anymore. And the final shot, we see the coyote coming up, similar to last episode, whenever it went off, of the neighbor sees the coyote out there and shoots the coyote. And then this one, another one comes up and it's seeing the body of its fallen friend. And he's like, you got to run. They shoot coyotes around here. So what do you think that is foreshadowing, or how do you think that was a good, dot of the period or exclamation point, if you will, for the end of the season?
I thought it was good. I mean, it's a good analogy that the coyotes are slang for drug smugglers, and so we kind of set up this, like, we kill people like you around here. However, we've let in was the title of the episode Breaking Bad or something related to drug smuggling?
I think it was. I think you're right.
So he does a tie-in just mentally with you that, hey, we're going to create this idea that maybe the drug cartel's not bad. Maybe it's similar to the business that you run, and yet I don't know if they're going to end up having to work together or what the deal is, but I think we're going to see some crossover there where there's conflict, but also maybe some acknowledgement that, I don't know, they're both existing businesses that affect a lot of people. Some of the things they do are harmful to people, but some of the things may not be as bad. And I'm not saying that promoting drug cartels, I don't know what all they do, but maybe they do keep some crime down. I'm also
writing down here. I'm writing down here, Kyle Reynolds promoting drug cartels is what I just put down here. That's good. I know we said it on a lot of episodes here. How cool is it that we're in, 2025, we've got a show that's, based around such a cool profession, and we've all got to kind of experience, we've all got our own stories. We've all got, 20 years plus, of being in this and being able to see this, and to see this sort of exposure to it. I absolutely love it. And to be able to talk to you fine fellers about stuff like this on a weekly basis, you couldn't get me happier. So, like, what let's do now, let's shift over and let's talk to our special guest of honor, our guest of the day, Mr. Kyle Reynolds. And Kyle, thank you already for your input on the show. But let's kind of get more into you and give the people that are listening in and watching in a little bit of the background of kind of where you come from and how we connect to you.
So
Yeah,
time
I guess
out. Before he does that, Kyle is a licensed attorney in more than one state, I believe. So Kyle, before you jump into any of that, do you have any disclaimers or legalese
we need
that you would like to proclaim before you start your opinion sharing?
Yeah, one thing. So, and I'll get into kind of background here in a minute, but I am currently serving as the first vice president for the American Association of Professional Landmen,
Nice.
and we'll be the president of that organization next year. And so, my legalese caveat is any of my answers and comments today are my own and not that of the association. I'm speaking on behalf of myself. So. And I had a good joke and Jerris jumped in, but I was going to say I just met Jerris on a flight 2 weeks ago and I know nothing about landmen or oil and gas. He said, if you wear that shirt, you can be on our show. And so here I am. But no, I grew up in Arkansas, went to law school at the University of Arkansas. And I tell people I'd rather be lucky than good. I knew nothing about oil and gas or landmen or anything, but during my time in school was when the Fayetteville Shale blew up and Chesapeake Energy put together a couple million acres and was trying to hire folks from Arkansas that might know some other people in Arkansas that help them buy more leases. And so for, I guess a 3 or 4 year run, they took 2 or 3 kids out of the law school every year to come work in Oklahoma City. And so I just happened to be in that window of time and really loved the fast paced nature of the land business. And I like property rights and contract rights and, that things move really fast. And I joke with folks, if attorneys were ruling the world, no decision would ever get made because they would all just point out all the flaws and potential things that could go wrong. And so working in the oil and gas business, like, those things, you're never going to break the law in person, but at some point you have to make a business risk, like make the business decision, like we can do this and then try to fix it. Worst case scenario is X or Y. And I just really liked that style of thinking. It's at the end of the day, I think I like to problem solve, and it's a great place to do that in the land business. Whether it's trying to find out how to find a person if you're needing something signed, or how to put together a unit or a trade, or how to make things work. So today I worked in-house for about 10 years with different companies, and then today I own my own company. RBG Permian, and we buy and sell minerals and non-op interest kind of in the New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma area.
Nice. That's awesome.
And yeah. So wear a lot of hats. I think Jerris had said I self-proclaimed serial entrepreneur, and I think at the base of that, or the root of that, kind of is again try to problem solve and help people. So I do some real estate stuff, some commercial real estate, hospitality businesses. Invest in a couple of tech and food and beverage businesses. So kind of run today, my business partner and I, more like almost like a family office. So oil and gas is our base and what we do the most of and what pays the bills. And it allows us to, kind of invest in some other things and diversify a little bit.
So I wanted to ask you about this, Kyle, knowing that you have all these different ventures. Is that taking that approach, is that something that you recommend that some landmen or that all landmen do? Like, should they be looking for other things to diversify themselves in? Why or why not? Why do you think that has worked for you? Why have you had success with that?
As a non-answer, like a yes/no answer, I think I do think it's a good thing. I mean, I think if you were sitting and my entire livelihood was based on the price of oil when oil went negative, or when we see big swings, I think it would be really hard. So I think having something else out there that, whether it's another revenue stream or another thing that you can focus on or fall back on, I think is good. I would say that it's good to stay within lanes that and so the root of a lot of the things that I'm doing are property related. It may not be minerals and may not make as much money, but it's in commercial real estate, or it's in, RV parks, or it's in office space. It's touching real property. Even some of the other businesses, some of the early investing is I always get a claim or a lien against their intellectual property for any startup business that I'm going to get into. It's just another, if that thing blows up, that's another potential revenue stream of licensing, in that bundle of rights, the sticks, that you could pull apart.
That's awesome.
So
I think it works really good, man.
Yeah, thank you. I think it works well for me. I think I'm a little scatterbrained and like to learn new things. I think it drives me to get into like a new industry, a new group. I live in Northwest Arkansas now, retail capital of the world. And so hearing some of the issues that folks here are dealing with, it's like, I don't know that world, but let me relate it to something that I do. And then it kind of allows me to change the way I think about how oil and gas contracts. It's like, Jerris and I've had conversations in the past. It's like, how did we jump from, an 8th royalty, 16th, 25th, or, a quarter? It's like, there's a lot of percentages in between that you could have gone to. I live here in Northwest Arkansas, retail capital of the world.
Yeah.
So here in ways that they think about contracts, or when they're negotiating, what percentages they're going to take as a carry or a fee for doing these services, or what a royalty is going to look like on a product sold through. It's similar to what we do as landmen negotiating, but they're using different terms and different scales. And so, I often find that when working in different sectors, you think about ways that you could apply that back to oil and gas, or what I do more on a day-to-day basis. And I think that's one of the things I guess I like the most about being diversified.
So when you're coming up with these different ideas of stuff that you're going to work in, do you have like a brain trust? Do you have like advisors? How do you know what you want to pursue? Like you said, you're pretty scatterbrained. How do you keep all that organized?
I take a lot of notes. I really, as much as I am all over the place, I am very meticulous in keeping notes, and with date stamps and who said what and what I thought at that time, and access those a lot. I do have several kind of mentors or advisors kind of in different fields or sectors. One thing that I advise folks on is never to make the mistake of thinking that one advisor that's good at one thing is going to be good at everything, or offer you good advice in other things.
Wise. That's really wise.
Yeah.
Honestly.
I mean, it's, I've used the analogy. It's like Tom Brady was a great quarterback. Does that mean he should be your financial advisor? Maybe, maybe not. The man's also good at golf and a lot of things. So maybe he's the exception, but a lot of those folks, it's just they're really good at their job, and they can help you in that. They might not offer you great like work-life balance, or be a good family man, or help you in that side of things. So having different folks and not feeling bad about reaching out and getting different answers from them, or having competing answers to kind of think through.
Yeah.
Well, so whenever you started out and you moved from Arkansas and you went to Oklahoma City, it's kind of a new venture for you and a new location. Did you have any mentors? And I'm not just saying like at Chesapeake, but mentors in the oil and gas space that you started out with that really helped put you on this path?
I met them there, kind of thing. Is one of those
Nice.
hit the ground running, didn't know a ton about it. I actually was fortunate enough to be office next door to Jerris.
Nice.
When we were working at Chesapeake. Is I don't
remember that.
What years was that? But met him, and Jerris is always good about introducing me to other folks. And so, kind of whether it was at Chesapeake or other companies, and kind of getting plugged in pretty quickly to, different organizations and, different folks you could bounce ideas off of. But I think Jerris and I were fast friends, which is a term that I like. It's, probably our stomachs were the first to figure out that we should hang out together. Yeah,
Nice.
we had a similar love-hate relationship with food, and love is that we love to eat it, and for some reason our bodies hate seeing a plate that's not clean. And so
let me ask you guys. You guys both are out of Oklahoma City area. Is there any restaurants from Oklahoma City that you absolutely miss?
There's a few. Cheevers was always one of my favorites.
Cheers, good place.
Yeah, Jerris has to tell his description of the most famous item from Cheever.
Are you talking about the pecan ball, Kyle?
The pecan ball, yeah.
Yeah. So actually, my mom had a birthday. Crazy, yeah. But my mom has a birthday every year. Yeah, and she had one this last year as well. And so I was in Oklahoma for it. And my sister and I took her to Cheevers, and my mom had never been there before. And I walked in and I didn't even look at a menu. I knew exactly what I wanted. I wanted the Juan's queso deal as the appetizer deal, the chicken fried steak with the jalapeno cream gravy.
Gotta get that one.
That was
That's
the entree. Classic. And then for dessert, I didn't know what anybody else was getting, but I knew what I was getting, and that was the pecan ball. And if you're not familiar with the pecan ball, what you're going to do is you're going to start with a ball of vanilla ice cream that's roughly the size of a baby's head, and you're going to love and cradle that thing just like it's a baby's head. And then they're going to put chocolate and caramel and pecans all over it, and then they put cayenne pepper on top of it, and then they give you a spoon and you just go to town on it. When I was ordering it, there was a couple of other people at the table, and my mom's like, well, I think I want a cake because it's my birthday and somebody else. And the waitress goes, well, they do like half size. I said, no, they don't.
No,
I don't know what you're talking
about. I'm aware of.
Not that I'm aware of. Yeah. So yes, I destroyed a pecan ball a couple months ago.
We went there pre-Christmas this year, took some friends, and that was our holiday dinner with one of our favorite couples. And we did have the pecan ball. One person at the table did get the jalapeno gravy and the chicken fried steak, and I don't remember what we had for appetizers, but fantastic place. They just opened one in Tulsa too.
Oh, really?
Really?
I did not know about that. That's closer to me.
That is closer to you.
Within the past, I want to say 2 weeks. So,
oh, cool.
Wow.
For all of our listeners, this is the Landman wrap up, the Landman show, and also restaurant review.
That's right.
That's where we're going with this new year. That's actually exactly right.
Kyle gives extremely good critiques of restaurants and things. And one of the things that people may not know about Kyle is his affinity for writing, and how it is eventually he has begun to spend more time on his writing. You have is it a Substack? Is that what you're doing?
Yeah, I've got involved a little over a year now, writing weekly for a Substack called The Pigsty, which is a Razorback sports blog. That's been really fun. My undergraduate degree was actually in writing and history, and which helped in going to law school, and then would have had to go to law school to get a job. I don't know what a person with a writing degree does really for a living. But it's been fun the last year or so being able to put some of that back to use.
That's really cool. So yeah, what do you write about? Is it just for the football, or is it for sports in general?
All sports in general. And
okay.
I've got kind of a meandering thoughts all over the place kind of style of writing. So normally pick some sort of framing device that's normally historic or rooted in meanings of words. And then kind of tie that into something that's going on with Razorback sports.
Man, I will check that out. That's really interesting.
Yeah, thank you.
You're not just looping me down a hole. You're not just putting in all this stuff in ChatGPT and letting it spit something out, are you? I mean, telling us you're this fantastic writer.
No, yeah, put in the blood, sweat, and tears, all the hard work.
So
I'm looking at it.
In your writing escapades, I've seen your writings both in the Landman magazine, which are awesome, and then also I've seen some of your Pigsty articles. You've mentioned somebody named Mark Reynolds, and I just got to ask, who is Mark Reynolds? Who is this guy?
Yep. So Mark Reynolds is my dad, and he's a character. Obviously, great guy. He helped kind of shape my sense of humor, love of reading, being curious. He's a big question asker, very frugal guy. But biggest thing is he's a guy that's never afraid of getting the answer no. Just might as well ask. What's the worst that could happen? Kind of mentality that I think has kind of shaped me. As a quick aside of kind of that would frame up who Mark Reynolds is in a single story. So we grew up small town, kind of middle of nowhere, 30 or 45 minutes south of Little Rock. Dad had an advertising business, selling kind of direct mail stuff when I was growing up. And he likes to read, just like I do, but didn't want to pay to have the newspaper delivered to our house, especially if he wanted to get both, local news, national news, a bunch of different newspapers. And so one day he decided in South Little Rock, kind of that he would drive somewhat by on his way home. There was a Holiday Inn. And he went into the Holiday Inn and just asked them if he could have all their newspapers. And some girl at the front desk was like, yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's in the afternoon. I guess our guest would have already read them if they wanted them. Right. And he took that yes and kind of expanded it to like a daily stop. Then in the morning, go pick up the paper on his way to work, get their magazine subscriptions, hit up the happy hour free buffet, sometimes some continental breakfast. And that's gone on for like 30 years, that he's no one has ever come back to tell him that all of these amenities are just for paying customers. And so he just using the system, man. It's who we should all aspire to be. Really.
It honestly is. Oh my gosh. I don't know him, but he's a hero of mine already. That's so funny. Yeah. Holy cow.
Oh no, I was kidding earlier. Yeah. I mean, I've had the fortunate luck of listening to Mark Reynolds stories for almost 15 years now. And every time Kyle says he's got a new one for me, I'm just on the edge of my seat because they are gold.
That is so funny.
It's really funny. So he turned 70 last week, and we got together and did kind of a surprise birthday party at his favorite restaurant at lunch. And he and his brother got to telling stories about their dad, about my grandpa. And one of which was their older brother had just turned 18, and as a kind of bragging a little bit, showing off to Pops, pulled back into the driveway and whipped out a pack of cigarettes because he was now old enough to buy the cigarettes, and lit up a cigarette and put it in his mouth. And my grandpa apparently pulled out a .22 and shot the tip of the cigarette out of his mouth as a show of force. And so hearing that story, thinking back to like my dad, having me, pay for my own long distance calls as a kid and tracking my gas mileage and those things. Maybe I didn't have it that bad. At all.
Maybe you didn't. Holy cow. I absolutely, we're going to have to request, we're getting Mark Reynolds and Kyle Reynolds on here for a show in season 2 of the Real Deal Landman.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. It's so good. And man, I know Jerris the same way of, love family connections, love being able to hear family stories. And I mean, our family is the people that help make us who we are. And I mean, just like you said, it make you more of a writer, make you have that sense of humor, and just growing up those experiences that we have through our families, through the people that we work with, through the connections that we make along the way. Like, it is such a fun ride, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, another family story I have to bring up about the Reynolds family, because they're so much more interesting than my own, is that as we've talked about, like, he's a bit of a foodie guy. And one of the things that I know that he particularly loved was his grandmother's cornbread recipe.
Yeah.
And so tell us about that one.
Yeah, so I'll take that story over. So my Mama Reynolds, my dad's mom, was like, always cooking, always open house. Like, I mean, like, somehow there's always 30 people in her 1,200 square foot house. And it's like, even when I was in high school, it's like my friends would go there instead of my house. And she always made cornbread. She did cornbread dressing. And it was like, she was getting up in her years. She passed away. She was like 92. But I was like, I want to start getting some of these recipes. So kind of sit down with her, what's your kind of homemade cheese dip recipe? And so I was like, all right, Mama, I love your cornbread. What's your secret? What's the recipe? And like, pencil and paper out. And she's like, well, I mean, I've got a great recipe that my mom gave me, but you like Jiffy. I've been making Jiffy straight from a box for you for years. She's the greatest cook ever. Nobody
good.
Yeah.
That is really funny.
So another thing I'll say about Kyle. So Kyle he's a bit, and I hope you're okay with me using this word, and I didn't know another word to use, but you're a bit of a futurist. Like,
oh, yeah.
And that's one of the things that he and I have always liked talking about is like, where are things going? whether it be just in the world or in the land profession. And I know that he keeps on top of a lot of this stuff. So, if that's a passion that you'd like to talk about for a few minutes, like what are some of the things that you see that might be coming out technological wise that could shape our profession?
Yeah, I think there's several things. I think the blockchain technology and the ability to kind of have perfect records and smart contracts is something that's going to change the way we do title and the way these agreements are set up. Obviously, I think it'll be smaller scale and something not as complicated, maybe as royalty payments. It may be more surface real estate transactions. But I think that's going to happen pretty quickly. I think we're already seeing use of artificial intelligence in drafting contracts and mapping and identifying new opportunities. I think the biggest thing, and Jerris and I talked about this a few years ago, and the technology has gotten better, but the application hasn't changed to my knowledge really yet. But, like I can use Google Assistant to get a reservation at a restaurant now that doesn't take online reservations. And the bot calls and gets somebody on the phone and then asks me prompts back and forth is like, will you split your party? We make 8 into 2 4-tops. Could you go to 6? Do you want it at 5 p.m. or 7 p.m.? And is negotiating back and forth. But if you think about in context of what a landman would do, if you were trying to put together, whether you're buying leases or minerals, but take a drilling unit, you could have the same bot negotiating with all 100 owners in that unit at the same time. And it potentially knowing where prices and royalties are going up and down on a spectrum, and take what might have taken a few months for a bunch of landmen with their call logs, and the time gap in between allowing one neighbor to go talk to another neighbor and your price is always going up. Instead, if the bot's able to close this deal in a matter of minutes, hours, days, it should be a great price reduction in keeping all those payments lower and terms more similar to each other than having these weird outliers that might have talked to a junior landman on the phone one day. It gave him a better deal than he was supposed to. It's always going to be negotiating in your best interest. And to counter that is, what if the other side also has a bot?
You're right.
As we get more into that. And so then are they more agreeable instantly because they know what's best for both sides? And there's none of this like one-upping, son, I'm going to shoot that cigarette out of your mouth and we'll talk later, kind of thing. I think all of those are things that are really much nearer term than we really realize.
I definitely agree. There is so much that's going to happen in the next 5 to 10 years on that AI front, and being able to use these bots to the companies going out and do it, like what you said, to be able to do negotiations with 100 different royalty owners all at the exact same time. Think of the benefit to that, and think about the real time application, information that could be coming in. It's absolutely staggering. It's amazing. Very, very interesting. Any other tech advances that you're seeing, whether it be through software or anything else that you think we might be kind of looking forward to?
I think obviously like robotics, physical robots are a thing that, if you think about most of the drama from the TV show that we're talking about has come from people being in physical harm's way. And yet if you were able to deploy physical robots into those work environments, and mitigate that risk and mitigate people working when they're tired or being on stimulants to be out there too long, I think your errors on the job should go down, and then you obviously don't risk harming people. And I think you're seeing that being deployed in a lot of the industrial sectors already, whether that's drone usage or other robots. But I think we're going to see a lot more of that, pretty soon too. The other thing I mentioned to Jerris the other day, and it's again infancy, but where we're at with quantum computing and kind of the ability
I love that. So interesting.
The ability
so incredibly interesting
for it to process something in a matter of minutes, what would take existing computers hundreds of thousands of years to come up with the same solutions. It's like, Instead of having, Jerris and I've worked at companies together, and it's like you get together around budget time, and you're asking a bunch of kids relatively right out of college, let's put together the best drill schedule.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like there's some computer usage in that, but not really. It's more like,
Right.
oh, we move here in about 6 days and there and carry the 3. And where does that become? It's like there's a better way to do this. And if you feed all the data into the right computer, and it can give you a perfect one that never has lease expirations, and also maximizes your production, and really a lot of benefits. And again, it's a buzzword. So I don't know how quickly the buzzword becomes
Reality.
an application, a reality.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I do think it's coming.
You have spurred some like my creative thinking of, for season 2 of the Landman, if Taylor Sheridan introduces like an AI, like a Tesla bot that is like the sidekick to Billy Bob, this season, this show will be the top of my list from this point on. Like, I mean, we need the very cheeky, like kind of, it always throws out like the little zingers, in the back as it's like fixing a pad site.
Yeah.
Like that's what I want from this show. I really feel like it can take it up a notch.
Yep, I agree.
So for the for people in the landman profession, for example, that might be apprehensive about the technology or are skeptical about like what can it really do, it seems like in conversations I have with people, they see it very much as an all or nothing approach. And so when they test a bot on one function, and if it doesn't do that function perfect, then it's, well, they throw their hands up and say, well, see, it doesn't work. I think there's kind of more of a methodical approach that is there. Just in conversations that you have with people, Kyle, like what, for naysayers or for skeptics, what do you say to them to help them put their minds around it or be able to understand this better?
I think trying to level with people with a task that they currently find burdensome or time consuming, and it like for doing the pigsty articles, for instance, the Substack has an embedded AI bot that reads my article and kind of knows what I'm trying to do, and if I give it a prompt, it'll make a pretty neat little AI picture that I don't have to pay a graphic designer or rip somebody off by using their photo online without paying a licensing fee.
Yeah.
And so like it's not perfect, but it's a neat use of something that would have taken me time or money. And whether it's the chat PDF or, you can use any of them, but take a simple application. It's like, oh, you don't like reading and retaining information from these documents. Well, let's put a single document in and see if it can get you to your answers faster. It may not be a one-stop shop. It may not be that I've let Gemini read everything in my Google Docs folder and know everything about me and be able to, do stuff. But the small tasks really do help. And I think if you start there and you can get comfortable with that, then you can kind of move to the next step. Because I as much as a futurist as I am, and I do like using all these things, I'm also somebody that's kind of concerned about privacy and what we're doing with all of our data. And so while it's easy for me to hold back on some stuff and not give access to, I also realize that I have no privacy anyway. Everything I've done is recorded and used for me or against me somewhere.
That's true.
And so if you can also get people to kind of get down that path, and like, it's probably worth the, saving the 10 or 15 minutes for you to do that thing, for you to give up that document that nobody was going to read anyway.
Kyle, I really appreciate it. This has been an absolutely fantastic time to get to know you a little bit more. And I know we worked together at Chesapeake at the same time. I don't think our paths ever crossed, but I wish they had have. I definitely wish they had have.
Absolutely. One question for you guys before we go is there an iconic landmark from West Texas that you are hoping will appear in season 2 that was left out of season 1? Or is there any scene or part of that part of the world that you feel like is missing?
An iconic landmark from West Texas? So not necessarily in Midland, just something out that way.
Yeah, it could be in Midland. Just kind of, is there something that would more authenticate the show if we got to see?
I have liked seeing. I always like that. What makes me always know that I'm in Midland I'm in Midland, and it's that bank sign that's downtown that always shows the price of oil per barrel. I mean, you see that and you're like, I know exactly where that is. I've stood on that corner. I felt the heat of, the Midland breeze on my face. Like, I know that, and I know the feeling of standing staring at that. If they ever had anything at the Wall Street Grill, I'd like to see the Wall Street Grill bar. But I wish I was funny enough to have thought of it. But the guy that earlier in this season that I brought on the show, or that I told about on the show, where he said it's not a good representation of Midland, like of the pad sites, until there is some HEB bags that are stuck to the side. Yeah. And I think that is the funniest thing I have heard. And it would be Midland, quintessential Midland. That's it. Like that is 100% it for me.
So not a specific landmark, but the show, at least to me, gives the illusion that Midland and Odessa is like this metroplex that are merged together. And I think a lot of people who were to go out there would be really surprised to see just how far Midland and Odessa is. And so I guess what I'd like to see in the show is that, like, if the Norris MTech's house is in Odessa and Billy Bob says, well, I got to drive over to Midland, I'd like to see him not show up in 2 minutes. I'd like to see him make like that 30-minute drive, and pass the air or the Space Force, and then
Space Force
continue
That's
on.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
But just, I'd like to see a little bit of reality in recognizing that they're two very separate communities with two very different sets of people, and they're not connected to each other at all. Like, that's a pretty good distance.
Kyle, is there anything that you haven't seen that you would like to see there?
I think things you guys said. I think Wall Street, I think is kind of an iconic place downtown. I think some footage of 50 to 100, all of the same white trucks that are all the company vehicles parked in every parking lot.
That's true.
I think the bar is still a place.
Bar.
I think
absolutely.
Is that supposed to be the Patch Cafe, you think?
I think it's a combination. Yeah.
Don't they need the tiles on the ceiling? One of them saying MTech's and being just, I think that would be pretty cool. That would be pretty cool.
And then
somebody in Midland should do that now. They're in Midland right now. Somebody should put an MTech's logo on one of those things. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic.
And then the DoubleTree as the kind of only hotel for a long time downtown that's been in need of a renovation since it opened, and can somehow fetch whatever rate they want to.
Yeah, $559 tonight. That seems fair. That seems really fair.
What's the worst hotel value rate that you've ever seen in Midland?
Two worst stories. One, everything was booked, and I was only able to stay out near the interstate. It's like the Big Texan I-10 or something. Yeah. It's a motel where there were RVs in the parking lot. And I checked into my room and opened the door, and there were boot prints, like muddy work boot prints across, and then step up on the bed and across, and then go into the bathroom. And so I kind of followed them.
Good.
And all the ceiling tiles had been removed from my bathroom ceiling, as if someone wanted to watch later.
Hell yes.
And so I slept fully clothed on top of the bed. Like, I don't know. This is enough surface touching that I want to do with anything in this room. That's one. And the other is at the DoubleTree. This is in probably 2015-ish, or 14, 15, high prices, rooms, well over $500 a night, not much availability. And I landed late in Midland, and a buddy picked me up at the airport, and we went to dinner or something. I didn't go straight to the hotel to check in. Got back to the hotel 11:30 or something to check in, and the poor lady at the front desk was like, "Oh, sir, I guess you didn't know Hilton's policy." I was like, "No, I wasn't aware." Apparently, if you don't check into your room by 10 p.m. on the night of booking, they reserve the right to sell it to somebody else. And so I didn't have a room. And again, it's high tide. It's not like I'm going across the street to another place.
Yeah.
And so got to start raising a scene, and got a manager, and our solution, was they could get me a rollaway cot and put me in the breakfast area there at the DoubleTree.
Lucky.
Yeah,
Just-
yeah, lucky me.
Did it still cost $500?
Of course it did. Of course, it was the nicest cot in town.
My mom used to do quite a bit of traveling for her work, and one time we were comparing stories about the worst hotels we'd ever stayed in, and we were both talking about this one motel, and just kept, like, as our stories were going, they just kept escalating about who had the worst. Well, mine had this one. Well, mine had that one. And finally we realized that our descriptions were beginning to merge and were becoming the same place. And sure enough, we were both describing the same La Quinta in Midland.
That's
so there
great.
was that one. It was similar to Kyle's Big Texan Extravaganza place or whatever that was. But the craziest thing I saw, I never paid it, but I did see once, the Super 8 off of I-20 was once listed for $1,000 a night.
Unbelievable.
For the Super 8.
Good. Good thing our pockets are deep, boys.
That's right. That's
That's
right.
good.
It's a good thing this show is taking off, so now we can afford
this is
those
paying
luxuries.
the bills, people.
That's
Thank
right.
you for those. Thank you for those likes and subscribes. Keep those going.
We're
Good
making so
night.
much money on this show now, we don't even have to mention our sponsors out loud.
Why would we? Why would we? No reason.
They can't afford us.
Oh, man. Well, Kyle, again, fantastic having you on today. Thank you for taking the time with us. This has been a really fun season. We're going to continue this show on. We're going to continue talking to just some of the best in the business and being able to bring their stories to you. And if there's certain people that you want to hear, please reach out to us and we will get in contact with them. Continue to share the message. Continue to, like we said, like and subscribe and keep pushing that name out there. For Kyle, for Jerris, I'm Drew. This has been the Real Deal Landman Show. Thanks for listening.
See y'all.
Thanks, guys.